So with that, I would like to turn them over to Sue Ryden and the legislative update as to where things are going in today's legislation. Sue?
Thank you, Gail. I'm really honored to serve as co-director of our Public Policy Committee with you. And I want to add my thanks to our terrific tech team, Carolyn Cooley, Kathy Hall, and Denise Pruitt, who really have worked hard to make this meeting possible. In 2008, while still owning the advertising and PR firm that I had started back in the 70s, I ran for office and I won. I served in the Colorado legislature for 8 years, and it was a steep learning curve and a time of great challenges. There was a deep recession going on. I had many rewards too. I served my last 2 years as the majority whip, but the most rewarding experience was the work I did with and for our veterans. 2 other former legislators are with me today, the Honorable Betty Boyd and the Honorable Nancy Todd. Betty has been our intrepid volunteer lobbyist coordinator over the past several years. She served in both the State House and the State Senate and would have completed all 16 years allowed under term limits, but she left the House early to fill a Senate vacancy. Her passion has long been health and human services, and she was responsible for passing numerous bills that have helped make Colorado a healthier place to live, especially for women. Nancy just completed her 16th and final year in the legislature, one of very few who have that distinction. She was a retired teacher when she got elected in 2004, and she has been a champion for public education, and she leaves a legacy of groundbreaking legislation from her time under the Capitol Dome. Coincidentally, both Betty and Nancy served as President Pro Tem of the State Senate. So today we're going to recap the 2020 regular session, the special session in December, and then we'll have an update on the current session and the AAUW's 2021 priorities. We'll also share some helpful hints about using the legislature's website and helping you develop relationships with your legislators. So please use the Q&A for questions and we'll address them at the end of the presentation. And now let's begin the 2020 recap and see what the Honorable Nancy Todd has to tell us today. Nancy.
Thank you very much, Sue, and it's a delight to be with you this morning, and I'm just thrilled to be retired. After 16 years at the Capitol, it has been a most eventful 2020 and one of the most difficult in many ways session because it was like a jigsaw. We were in and then we were out and then we were in and then when we were out, we did a lot of remote. I think this was definitely the year that we learned how to maintain good communication throughout all of our conversations. We started the session in January of 2020, and we were back and forth in terms of would we stay the course. Finally, in March, we took a hiatus and we were able to continue the communication via remote. It was important that during that 2020 session, when we started, we knew we had priority bills. We knew we needed to pass the budget. We knew we needed to pass the school finance bill. We knew that there were certain things that absolutely had to happen. We had to do some rule changing to make sure that remote was going to be a possibility for legislators that were not comfortable in coming to the Capitol in person. And so there was a lot of work that needed to take place. One of the most important bills that I know AAUW has always supported is paid family and medical leave. And that was a bill that had a lot of curves for coming and going and a lot of strong advocacy and ways of trying to make that work. It was finally recommended that it was not going to pass. And so there was a group of people who created a petition and created enough signatures to actually put it on the ballot. And as we all know, it did pass. And so that was one of the very first things and most successful things that a lot of discussion and a lot of communication went through. Next slide. The other topics and issues that were so important were women's economic and workplace bills, college credit for work experience. That has always been something that I think we've all looked at and said it's not just book learning, but it is also that work experience that really pays for making sure that people are ready to go into the workforce. Being able to identify racial hairstyles and anti-discrimination was an important bill that was brought forward primarily by the Black Caucus, but supported and passed in both the House and the Senate. Apprenticeships into high schools, the information for parents to know and understand what are some of those choices and what does that look like. And then COLA adjustment for the Colorado Works recipients. And again, one more way of making sure that we were supporting and giving credit to those folks that are in the workforce. Next slide. Some of the other bills that were important and that we continue to support as AAUW is positive reproductive health rights and justice bills to codify in the Colorado statutes the preventative health and contraceptive coverage required by the Affordable Care Act. And again, that's something that I know we will continue to see move forward into 2021 that Betty will be talking about. We did work to continue opposing anti-choice bills and ballot measures. But I think one of the things that I want to really emphasize is how important the communication was in a socially appropriate manner. Masks were worn by everyone in the Senate. In the House, there were some who chose not to be as cooperative, but there was definitely an honoring of distancing. There was so much work done by our secretaries of both the Senate and the House to make sure that we were there and we were safe, hand sanitizers, masks, distancing, and even the seating on the legislative floor. Next slide. Then, of course, we jumped right into, after being through in March, we jumped back in May, the end of May, for 3 days for a special session. And during that time, we passed a very limited number of bills. We were very focused on it being COVID related. And so even though we had a lot of bills that we wanted to go ahead and move forward on from the regular session, we really honored the fact that this special session was called for COVID related bills. So $57 million struggling small businesses, trying to really incorporate and influx some financial support for our small businesses was the very first one in the Senate. $60 million for energy and housing, or excuse me, emergency housing and assistance for individuals, and including $1 million to the Eviction Legal Assistance Fund. We saw so many people who were jeopardized by where they could live as well as where they could work. And so those were two extremely important bills. That's why they were 1 and 2. $5 million to the Energy Outreach Colorado Low Income Energy Assistance Fund. And again, making sure that our most vulnerable were able to keep their electricity going and their public service. Then we had $100 million for public health. So again, those were all investments that we were making. And the main reason that we did this was because the federal government was not doing it. And we knew that people were in such desperate need that we needed to take that forward and move in a positive way. We also saw $20 million towards increasing our state broadband capacity. As Paula mentioned in the very beginning, we have those children and school age people who do not have access. And so we wanted to be able to expand some of that broadband. We allocated $45 million to enable 2,600 new and existing childcare providers to meet the needs of working parents, and especially in child care deserts. And again, we know that our essential workers needed to go to work, but they needed to make sure that their children were in a safe place as well. We allocated $5 million to increase the access to food for Colorado families facing food insecurity. And again, we saw our school districts rise up. We saw so many people come forward by donating to food banks, but this was something that we as legislators felt very compelled to make sure that that happened. And then we also allowed restaurants, bars, and food trucks to actually retain state sales tax through February 2021, up to $2,000 per month per location and up to 5 locations. And then in addition to that, we changed some of the rules for where outdoor food restaurants were being made available, and make those kinds of allocations and changes for some flexibility so that they could stay open and continue to serve. Next slide.
Thank you so much, Senator Todd.
Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Todd. And now it's time to look at our 2021 priorities and our 2021 session preview with the Honorable Betty Boyd.
Thank you, Sue. It's wonderful to be here today with you all. And we've talked about our past, our checkered past as legislators. And I like to think that old legislators don't just fade away. Often they come back as advocates. And that's exactly what the three of us seem to be doing in our life after the legislature. I'd like to talk about our 2021 priorities for this year. As you've heard, it's been a strange year. We have seen so far no bills to be introduced specifically, but we do have a little bit of reconnaissance on some things to come. I would like to underscore that our AAUW public policy priorities are based on AAUW's mission to advance gender equity for women and girls through research, education, and advocacy. And these priorities provide the basis for AAUW members' actions at the local, state, national, and international levels. You can find these on in the AAUW website, aauw.org. I would encourage you to take a look at those because it's a great outline of the kinds of things that we are in support of in Colorado. The first issue that we have, first of all, the Public Policy Committee met just a few days ago, and these 4 priorities that you see on the screen will be our highest areas of focus in the 2021 session. Women's reproductive health and justice bills continue to be a very high priority for us as women. As you heard Nancy, the one priority bill that we know is coming that ended up not making it through last session is a bill to support, to codify in state statute the list of preventive health and contraceptive measures from the Affordable Care Act. That last year was called Senate Bill 156. It's not numbered again this year, but I've spoken with Senator Pedersen's staff, and we know it's coming, and the language is going to be quite similar to last year. This is important because of the attacks that have continued on the Federal Affordable Care Act, attempts to repeal. We would like to have these protections in the Colorado state statutes. So should should the Affordable Care Act go away, we would still be able to have insurance cover those important preventive services. We also have voted to, again, oppose all bills that are in any way interfering with women's reproductive health and their ability to choose their own paths. In the past, several of the restrictions that keep coming back have been to protect life at conception. Last year we had a bill for the rights of a living child after an abortion, which doesn't really happen. And the 22-week ban on abortion. These are all, many of them are called TRAP restrictions, and that stands for Targeted Restrictions on Abortion Providers. Our second important area of interest will be behavioral health issues. We do know that Representative Michelson-Jeannet is carrying a bill for parity in mental health, and a bill that in behavioral health would require that insurers cover one mental health visit per year for the insured, and that would be as a part of preventive medicine. And we did vote to support that bill, even though we don't have the language. Women's workplace and economic issues. As you heard, the Family and Medical Leave Bill is now law, and there should be very little tinkering with it, because the ballot amendment laid out all of the details for what the program will look like. There will be probably a budget initiative to begin the process. Actually, they're already in the process of implementation at the Department of Labor. The same is true of paid sick leave. There was a bill passed in this last session dealing with paid sick leave, and perhaps there will be some more action around that issue. Other expected legislation, one dealing with family child care homes, would change the status from residences to small businesses, and that has great impact for the family child care providers. Where we know that there will be a pilot program for a diaper bank brought by Senators Pedersen and Danielson and Representative Kipper and Gonzalez Gutierrez. And this is a 2-year pilot that would provide up to $4 million for a diaper bank for women who are not able to afford the diapers, and we know that that's not healthy for the child, and it's certainly unpleasant for the mom as well. Also, we anticipate a budget initiative to increase the pay for providers of childcare, to create a licensing structure, and to improve salaries for people working in the Colorado Child Care Program. And then, also another bill to strengthen worker protections from discrimination by independent contractors. That's not currently in law. And then lastly, under that area, we do know that Representative Jodeh will have a bill on dealing with evictions, rent increases, and mobile home practices. Don't know what that is going to look like or contain, but the reality is that very often it's women with children who end up being evicted first from apartments or from mobile homes. And then the last area of priority this year, given our topic today, is equity and technology in education. We do know that that there will be an attempt to provide school districts, to allow school districts to use pre-COVID student enrollment numbers in their budget decisions this year for the next budget to be adopted. So many students in this day of COVID have apparently gotten lost, or they're not checking in online. So this would be an attempt to be able to restore education funding in a more healthy and vibrant way. Will be a request for an audit of the state system of accreditation and accountability. We expect a bill to help students get certification in various trades while they're in high school. Also, we understand a bill dealing with apprenticeships so that apprenticeships could be assumed by folks in high schools. And the other bill that I would raise is a bill from Representative Ricks that will deal with teacher diversity in schools. So that is, that's my report at this point. As things change and when the legislature comes back on about the 16th of February, we will begin to have public notice of what is actually the language of the bills. And we look forward to that so that we, as a committee, we can we can really study the bills and make some good decisions on where the lion's share of our advocacy will take place. So we thank you for your interest today. And I just want to mention, for those of you interested, that Reproductive Freedom Lobby Day, which is a day that AAUW has in the past supported financially and with attendance, is scheduled for Wednesday, March 24th. And we'll get some information out to you about that. I encourage you to attend. It will be virtual this year, as is most everything that we do in life today. So thank you so much for your attention today, for being part of the largest group to ever enjoy Colorado's Public Policy Day. And thank you. Back to you, Sue.
Thank you, Senator. So now it's time to take a look at how to use the legislature's website. And we'll give you some helpful hints on building relationships with your legislators. So let's go to our next slide. So as you can see, it's pretty easy to get to the Colorado General Assembly website. It's leg.colorado.gov, or you can just Google Colorado General Assembly or Colorado Legislature and you will get there. It's really a well done website with lots of sort of intuitive things going on here. So if you want to find your legislator, that would be the first thing you want to do. And you click on that icon on the home page and it takes you here, and there's a map and there's a place where you can fill in your address, and it will take you to your state representative and state senator. And we could go to the next slide. How to find a bill. So the icon is there on the home page also, and you just fill in the blank space, either if you know the bill number, if you know the sponsor's name, if you have a keyword, and then you hit apply, and it will take you to that bill. And that bill will that bill screen, then when you get there, will show you the sponsors, all the versions of the bill that have been presented so far, the bill text. If it's a bill that already passed, you can download the PDF of the final act that's signed by the Speaker and the President of the Senate and the Governor. And it will give you a fiscal note if there is one. I found during my time in the legislature that the fiscal note was often one of the best ways to find out about the bill, because they would give you a summary at the beginning of the fiscal note, which was really usually very well written. So the fiscal note is always something that you want to look at. Then next, we want to find out how we can tune in. And that's easy too, because there's another little icon that tells you how to do that. And so you can listen in on committee hearings. You can listen in on floor hearings. So in the committees is when the bill is first really heard, and that's when they allow public testimony. And on the floor, you'll have a second reading with a voice vote, and then you'll have a third reading, which usually does not have a lot of debate, but may have. And those are not open to the public testimony, but you can certainly listen in. And you can also go back and listen to previous recordings. So there's just a lot of information there. Comcast has channel 165 for the General Assembly. And I'm not sure what other cable systems might have, but you can look that up and find it. So let's go to the next slide. And please do put in questions in the question box if you have questions about how to use the website. And I think, Betty, if you want to explain some of these tools, that would be good.
Yeah, the daily calendar is so important. It tells you exactly what is going on each day, what committees are meeting and when, and the bills that the committees are scheduled to hear that day. And then also what is being heard on second and third reading. The committee hearings are open again. The calendar just prepares you for the day, whereas in the journal is the official minutes of the proceedings on a daily basis. So on any given day, the journal will be up from the previous day's action, includes the final votes. This is where you go to the journal to see how your legislator voted on specific issues. And this is the vote that counts on third reading. The status sheet is, I've found that to be probably the most helpful, because that lists the bills and the dates of introduction and their path through the legislative process. And it's updated on a daily basis, so you can always see if a bill has gone and is dead and you don't have to think about it anymore, or what the next step is in the process. And it also tells you when the governor assigned the bill. Next sheet.
So Nancy, do you want to tell us about some of the other resources on the website?
Absolutely. And I wanted to also add that on that status sheet that Betty just talked about, it has all the House bills and the Senate bills, and House bills are 4 numbers, Senate bills are 3 numbers. And so that's one way that you can tell which House or which chamber the bill is actually starting in. So the budget obviously is one of the most important documents that we produce every year. And our joint budget committee meets starting in November and moving forward. So they're already meeting and talking a lot about trying to maintain and keep the expenses for K-12 education, for all of the different departments, and making sure that the budget is prepared for the legislature to approve. And normally we're looking at that like in March every year, and now it's just a little tricky with being just coming back in February. So keep your eyes out for that, and I'm sure there will be a lot of coverage in the news as well. Any committee, you can find out when your legislator that you are communicating with, what committees are meeting and when, whether it's education or health or transportation, agriculture, whatever those different committees are. And you are able to listen in to them. You are able to testify if you are interested in particular bills. The Colorado Revised Statutes, again, looking at that online, being able to figure out where something is and what is current and what is being changed and what's being discussed on that. Different agencies, there are so many different partnerships that legislators are working with, whether it is the different agencies, the different lobbyists, the different groups that are coming to the Capitol to make sure that there is a wide range of information given. But the agencies are who work very closely with the governor. We'll hear from Dr. Paccioni after a while, and she represents higher education, but being able to look at and work together in a collaborative manner. The audits are really key. This year there is, as Betty had mentioned, going to be some very important audit work that is done. I had the privilege of serving on the audit committee for the last several years and actually serving as the chair and working with Auditor Diane Ray. And they will be looking, I guess I better jump back, no longer we, but they will be working on finding a new auditor because Diane Ray is going to be retiring and at the end of this session, and I believe in June, and they will be looking at some of the auditing of schools and education issues, as well as judiciary. There's going to be some very serious work done on that this year, and then also finding a replacement auditor. So if any of you are interested in becoming an auditor for the state of Colorado, keep that as a possibility. Publications are resources that are on the website as well that you can pull up and find out what are some of the different current things that are being produced. We have an absolutely wonderful legislative council that really keeps us up to date on so many different issues and different policies that are being addressed. And so those are available as well for you to be able to pull up on site.
Thank you, Senator. And we're running a little short on time, so we need to kind of speed through, do some speed reading here on being engaged with your legislators. And I guess one of the things I really want to stress is that, especially at the state level, your legislators are real people in your real community, in your real neighborhood, and they are very accessible. So you should not hesitate to try to get to know them. One, you can visit the campaign website, you can attend their town halls, you can even volunteer in their Capitol office, you can volunteer on their campaigns, and especially we want you to respond to our AAUW federal and state action alerts. In contacting your legislator, you should initially contact them, introduce yourself, let them know you're a member of AAUW. You can offer to testify on bills where you have an area of expertise like education or law or criminal justice, healthcare, and then you want to contact them when the bill is actually introduced and when it may be coming into the committee, because the committee's where they have the public hearing, and that's when a lot of the decisions are made. So I'm sorry to rush through that part. I'm not sure. I think we are right on our time. We may have time for maybe one tiny question if any have come in. Gail. Is Gail there?
Denise, if you could post that slide that showed the state legislature homepage. Some people wanted to make sure that they had the right URL for that. And can you quickly answer, if someone wants to testify, what is the specific steps that they would need to go through to testify at a committee hearing?
Senator Todd, do you know what that process is now that we're remote?
Thank you. I think probably the most important thing is that you would reach out to the chair of that committee. So for example, the chair of education in the Senate is Senator Rachel Zenzinger, and in the House is Representative Barbara McLaughlin. And so you would reach out to them and say, I want to be able to come and testify. And then there will be follow-up directions and instructions given. If that does not work, you can always reach out to your legislator that you are establishing that relationship with, and they can make sure that they direct you. But I know that the remote testimony is very much available and encouraged for people to stay involved.
Good.
There is one question. John Peterson asked if we would repeat the website, the state website, and that is, you can either Google Colorado General Assembly, or the address is ledge.colorado.gov.
Right. It's easy to find.
And the last thing I'd like to say is that even if you don't have a bill that you're necessarily wanting to go and testify, but you want to establish a relationship with your legislator, it can just be, hey, this is Nancy Todd. I live in Aurora, and I'm really interested in staying in tune. Make sure I'm on your newsletter list, and just reach out to your legislators and make sure that you're establishing that relationship before you're really advocating for a bill, because then you are known by them and they recognize your name as being a member of AAUW as well.
And one final thought, even if your legislators are not in the same political persuasion as you still want to have that relationship, because there is common ground on many issues, and there are ways that we can all work together. And it is just good if you reach out and have a relationship with your legislators. They really appreciate it, because not that many human beings approach them. They get a lot of information from the lobby, but they don't get so much from their own constituents. So please do that. And I think we have to wrap now. Want to thank you all for your attention. Thank you, Senator Todd, Senator Boyd, and thank our audience for your commitment to our mission of empowering women.